You're alleging that Obama is openly aiding and abetting this Holocaust against Christians? Stephen, are you hearing me or not? I don't think he's hearing me. All right, we have another breakdown. There we go. WJJF in New London, Connecticut. Brian, you're on the Savage Nation. Fire away.
Thank you for being our voice of freedom, Dr. Savage. I have a couple liberal friends, and I have them convinced that there's something going on. I'm not a huge conspiracy theorist, but I listen to you every day. You put the pieces of the puzzle together, and there's no other conclusion to draw than he wants this stuff to happen. He's doing absolutely nothing at all. I have 3 little kids. They're going to grow up in a weaker country than we have now, and a president that is doing nothing.
Well, here's the question. Why would he not say that the Armenian massacre by Muslims, the Ottoman Turks, killed 1.5 million, starved them to death, raped them, murdered them, cut their heads off, gouged their eyes out, pushed bayonets through babies? 1.5 million Armenians were massacred. Obama, during his campaign, said he would make sure that the world didn't forget this. And this is the 100th anniversary of the killings this week. And yet, Obama will not call the Armenian massacre, by the way, the Armenians are Christians, a genocide, because he wants to placate the Turks. What is that all about? How can you justify a thing like this?
And the same reason the Fort Hood shootings was a workplace violence incident and not a terrorist attack on our country. This president needs to...
Well, speaking about the Fort Hood massacre, why is the perpetrator still living? Why is Major Nidal Hassan still alive when he committed these atrocities in 2009? Timothy McVeigh was executed within a few years, wasn't he?
Absolutely. He absolutely was. And this is another terrorist attack, but we have a president, a leader of the free world, that is refusing to call acts of terror terrorist acts. It is unbelievable.
All right, so you would believe that not only is he looking the other way, he's actually acting on their behest. You go that far.
I go that far.
He goes that far. He goes that far as to say that there's an open penetration of our government by a Shia Muslim bloc inside the White House. How do you like that? Shows you how crazy some people are.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE. Savage.
And less violence around the world today than there might have been 30, 40 years ago. It doesn't make it any less painful, but things can get better. We just have to be vigilant, and we have to have strong partners.
Meanwhile, Christian churches are being burned to the ground. Whole families are being raped and set on fire. Christians are being driven out of the Middle East. Yazidis are being driven out of the Middle East. And this lying double agent of ours, called the president, has the audacity to go on MSNBC and says, there's less war and less violence. I'm doing a great job. I'm doing just a great job. Meanwhile, everyone who is in the military who knows better knows that he could have taken ISIS out within a week. But we're not doing that, are we? There's an actual calculation of how many impotent actions he has engaged the military in against ISIS, which is why they continue to rampage on their blitzkrieg. Do you understand that? WABC, John, welcome to the program. What's on your mind? Go ahead, please.
Okay, I'm going to tell you right how I feel why this guy put these warships out in Yemen. It's a big diversion. People think he's there for other reasons. He strictly put them there to intimidate Israel in case Israel decides to attack Iran and blow up those nuclear silos. That's why they're there.
Well, that's an interesting one. I don't know why he would send warships to Yemen since he's on the same side as Iran. I mean, Iran has become our ally in Yemen.
Yeah, exactly.
So why would he send what are the warships for? They don't seem to be to fight the Iranian proxy army. Is that what they're there for, or what?
They're there strictly for Israel. In case Israel tries to attack Iran, that's why they're there. And if they're not going to attack, he's there to intimidate them. It's a message. That's the only reason.
Why do you? What made you come to this conclusion?
I know. I mean, everything about what he's been doing over the past couple of years is all opposite of what we stand for in America. So I know everything he does is wrong. Everything is backwards. Everything is for a purpose. It's strictly to destroy everything.
You know what's interesting to me is that there's an article on CNN by a man who copied my line, Aaron David Miller. He says, how Iran outfoxes the U.S., but he's actually ripping off one of my lines. He says, we're playing checkers on the Middle East game board, and Tehran's playing three-dimensional chess. How many times have you heard Michael Savage say that over the last few years? At least a dozen times. Is that correct?
I'm sure. I've only been listening for a few months, so what you've been saying is what...
Yeah, they're playing chess, and we have people who are also playing chess. This is where they got it wrong. Obama's not playing checkers against their chess. He's playing chess against the American people. Obama's playing three-dimensional chess against the American people and checkers against Iran. That's the real answer here, John.
Exactly.
Thank you for the call. 855-407-282. How do you feel about Jeb Bush sticking up for the spying on all Americans? How could you accept that? How could you accept a man saying that and claiming he's a Republican candidate? In another age, he would have been verbally tarred and feathered for this by the conservative media. But because the so-called conservative media is so owned by the Republican National Committee, including the Rush cartel, and I'm sick of it. I'm not holding back anymore. Rush Limbaugh and his cartel is owned by the Republican Party. They put him in power. They keep him in power. And that's why Jeb Bush gets away with it. The Rush cartel was created by the Republican National Committee, which is why he sounds like such a lying oaf. I don't care anymore. I'm not going to hide this anymore. The Rush cartel is owned lock, stock, and barrel by the RNC, which is why they support Jeb Bush. Which is why they support the ice cream man Rubio and the other insignificant candidates. It's why we're in trouble, because there's a one-party system. Since 1994, when I began in radio, I have told you we have a Democrat Party running America. Or sometimes it's a Republican Party running America. I told you this was an oligarchy in 1994. Has it changed? Only now it's more naked. In other words, they would have hidden it a few years ago. They don't even hide it, do they? WMAL in Washington.
Hey, Mike.
Please don't ever insult me by calling me that man's name.
I'm just playing with you. What's the breaking point? How long can we go on this path with the elitists running everything till we have to say enough's enough?
Well, why do you call them elitist? I don't like the word elitist. Why do you apply the word elitist to a bunch of low-life, double-dealing, backstabbing, anti-American carpetbaggers? Why call them elitists?
I agree with you. It's just a term that a lot of people identify with them.
Yeah, well, it's the wrong term. The word elitist gives them some dignity. There is no dignity in a person being treasonous or traitorous.
No.
And the entire Republican Party is treasonous or traitorous. They're engaging the same policies as Obama, as evidenced by Jeb Bush's statements.
So what do the Americans...
Have you heard one Republican candidate stand up and say the words borders, language, and culture in their campaign? Has Ted Cruz uttered those words? No. No, he hasn't. Has Rand Paul uttered the words borders, language, and culture? No, why not? That has been my definition of how a nation is defined. Borders, language, culture. Can you name one nation on earth that does not define itself by borders, language, and culture? Even the despicable Hitlerites in ISIS claim that their border is what they want it to be. Their language is Arabic and their culture is Sharia law. They know what borders, language, and culture is. We, the Americans, are so weak, so broken, so drugged that we don't even recognize that we have been infiltrated and taken over by enemies of our own freedoms. They're the enemies of our borders. They're the enemies of our language. They're the enemies of our culture. What do they have to do until you wake up and say, no, I'm not voting for any of the above. I'm not voting for any of the Republicans. I will not vote for Jeb Bush. I will not vote for Rubio. I will not vote for Cruz. I will not vote for Rand Paul. Because they're all repeating the same party line. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Meanwhile, the tsunami called ISIS hangs over our head. The head of the FBI 3 or 4 weeks ago said that sleeper cells exist in 49 of the 50 states. The very next day, your president disinvited him from a conference on terrorism. That's right. The head of the FBI was disinvited from a conference on terrorism because he dared say the truth, that there are sleeper cells in 49 of the 50 states. Your president, your double-dealing president, your Sharia-friendly president did not invite the head of the FBI because he dared tell the American people the truth. There's only so far we can go in our discussion. I was one of the people who said, hold your nose and vote for the Republicans last November. I admit it. Remember when my book was coming out, Stop the Coming Civil War? Well, Obama has been on a civil war against America from the day he entered the political scene. You say, well, hey, Savage, where's the Civil War? You're living through it, idiot. Obama's engaged in a social civil war against this nation. That book was prescient. That book was quite prescient. 855-400-7282 FTL in Fort Lauderdale. Tom, welcome to the Savage Nation program. What's on your mind?
Yes, sir. Regarding Jeb Bush's holding to NSA spying on Americans, he's faithful to the entire Bush family tradition of supporting dictatorships, going back all the way back to Prescott Bush, his grandfather.
Oh, I don't disagree. I don't disagree with you. The liberals were arguing against George Bush till they were blue in the face. They were arguing against the Patriot Act. You remember?
Yes, I do. I do. And
okay, so now we wake up and Obama expands the Patriot Act, and we say that's terrible because nobody wants to be spied on. And now we wake up and there's Jeb Bush glorifying the very same despicable anti-American Patriot Act.
Yes, sir, and Obama is just an extension of the Bush operation.
Right, so Obama is not really an anomaly, is he?
No, he's not.
No, Obama is a stooge of the very same powers that run the world. Some say it's the Bilderbergs. They like the name because it sounds foreign and it sounds Jewish and it sounds like Jewish bankers. But actually, Bilderberg is a reference to a place, not a person. And it's a reference to a Christian place, not a Jewish place. But I don't want to bore people who are Nazis with the facts. They like the word Bilderberg because it sounds like a conspiracy. But there are only a few people running the whole world. You know that, don't you? And it's all about profits. It's only about profits. It's all about profits, day and night. Isn't that true?
Financial interest.
Yes. Yes, financial interest. That's right. If I have to describe the United States today, I would say that it is a nation that has been infiltrated, and it is being run by enemies of our freedom, but more specifically, enemies of our borders, language, and culture. That's irrefutable. And I want to move you to another area right now without getting too agitated. Countdown to Mecca is the most brilliant novel I've ever written, and it's coming out in 3 weeks from St. Martin's Press. This is not a self-published book. This is by the most important talk show host in America, Michael Savage. And Countdown to Mecca is the last of a trilogy of novels. I will not write another one. I will not write another Jack Hatfield novel. That's it. The first two were really good. They were bestsellers. They're set in San Francisco. They've got the color of the streets. This is the best one of all with the best plot. And it's all about Iran getting the nuclear weapons that Obama's trying to give them. And there are characters in it that I've never used before. It's set in Israel, San Francisco, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan. It's set in many places. I'd like to read some of it to you, maybe tomorrow. There's a lot in here about the Mossad working with the U.S. military to bomb Mecca, and how Jack Hatfield hears about this plot and works feverishly to stop them from this crazy plot, knowing that it would set off World War III. It's a good book, a really good book, and I highly recommend that if you're interested in military affairs, if you're interested in conspiracies, if you're interested in just a good read, that you take a look at Countdown to Mecca, my new novel. Countdown to Mecca, New York Times bestselling author of A Time for War. I'm not in the mood to read from it right now. I've had too much stress today, and the stress was mainly electronic, nothing else. Systems failures 5 minutes before the show yesterday, systems failures today. They take their toll on a human being, and I can only do so much in one day. Meanwhile, I'm here, stressed out as can be. It's okay. I'm not complaining. It's just part of the business. But here's a good little piece for you. It was set in Israel now, in Countdown to Mecca. It's set at the U.S. radar station in Mount Keren, Israel. And I want to read to you about one of the military